Most people think eating after 60 requires expensive superfoods or complicated diets. But that's just not true. Today, I'm showing you the 10 everyday foods that actually protect your joints, your brain, and your energy. Foods like this simple leafy green that most people forget to eat. Let's clear up the confusion and get straight to the food. Let's talk for a moment about why nutrition becomes even more important as we get older. Because understanding the why makes the what so much easier to stick with. And it makes it far more likely that you'll actually follow through on these changes, rather than forgetting about them in a week. Your body changes with age. That's just a fact of life, not something to feel discouraged about. Just something to understand so you can work with it rather than against it. Your metabolism naturally slows down a little over time, which means your body simply doesn't burn calories at the same rate it once did. Your muscles, if you're not actively working to maintain them, tend to shrink gradually, a process doctors sometimes call sarcopenia. This isn't something that happens overnight. It happens slowly, often without much notice, until one day you realize a jar lid is harder to open or a flight of stairs feels more tiring than it used to. Your bones can slowly lose density as well, which is part of why fractures become more common with age, and why a fall that might have been minor at 30 can become serious at 70. And your digestive system may not absorb certain nutrients from food as efficiently as it once did, meaning that even if your diet looks similar to what it was years ago, your body might not actually be getting everything it needs from it. Groups like the National Institute on Aging and the CDC point out that as we age, our need for certain nutrients actually increases, even as our overall calorie needs may decrease. Nutrients like calcium, vitamin D, and vitamin B12 become especially important during this stage of life. That creates an interesting challenge and, honestly, kind of a puzzle. You may need to eat less in terms of total quantity, but what you do eat needs to be more nutrient-dense than ever before. In other words, every single bite needs to count a little more than it used to. There's simply less room for empty calories, things that fill you up without giving your body what it actually needs. At the same time, many people notice their appetite naturally decreases as they age. This is common and completely normal, but it's worth taking a moment to understand why it happens, because understanding it can help you respond to it in a healthy way rather than just ignoring it. Sometimes it's because our sense of taste and smell become less sharp over time, so food doesn't taste quite as vivid or exciting as it once did, which can genuinely make eating feel less enjoyable. Sometimes it's because eating alone after years of sharing meals with a partner, a spouse, or family around a table just doesn't feel as enjoyable anymore, and eating can start to feel more like a chore than a pleasure. And sometimes it's simply because chewing or swallowing has become more physically difficult, whether from dental issues, dry mouth, or other health changes that come with age. All of this is normal. None of it means something is wrong with you, and none of it means you're failing at taking care of yourself. But it does mean that the food you eat needs to work harder for you than it perhaps did when you were younger. So the goal here isn't necessarily to eat more. In fact, for many people at this stage of life, the goal isn't really about quantity at all. The goal is to eat smarter, choosing foods that give you the most benefit for the effort of actually eating them, foods that pack a lot of nutritional value into a small, manageable amount. So what exactly can good nutrition do for you at this stage of life? Let's go through a few of the benefits, because I think it genuinely helps to keep these in mind as motivation, especially on days when cooking feels like too much effort. Good nutrition can help keep your muscles strong, which matters more than most people realize until they experience the alternative. Strong muscles help you stay steady on your feet, which reduces your risk of falling, one of the leading causes of injury among older adults, and something that can dramatically change quality of life if it happens. Good nutrition also supports your bones, helping them stay strong and less prone to fractures if you do happen to take a tumble or bump into something. It supports your heart and your blood vessels, helping maintain healthy blood pressure and cholesterol levels over the long run. It can help your brain stay sharp, since certain nutrients play a documented role in memory and cognitive function as we age. It supports your immune system, helping your body fight off colds, infections, and illnesses more effectively, which matters more the older we get, since recovery time also tends to increase. And quite simply, it helps you feel more energetic day to day, so you can actually enjoy your time with grandchildren, hobbies, friends, travel, or whatever it is that brings genuine joy into your life. The Mayo Clinic and the NHS both emphasize a similar core idea when it comes to nutrition and aging. Quality matters more than quantity. A smaller plate full of the right foods can genuinely do more for your body than a large plate full of the wrong ones. It's not about eating less out of restriction, punishment, or some rigid diet mentality. It's about being intentional and thoughtful with your choices, treating food as something that supports your body rather than something to fear or overthink. So now, let's actually talk about what those right foods are. I've broken this down into 10 food categories, each one chosen because of the specific, well-documented ways it supports the body as we age. For each one, I'll explain why it matters, and I'll give you a few simple, realistic ways to work it into your routine. Because I know that knowing what to eat is only half the battle. The other half is actually making it happen in real life, in a kitchen, on a budget, with whatever energy you have that day. Let's start with number 1, leafy green vegetables. The one I mentioned right at the start of this video. Think spinach, kale, collard greens, and Swiss chard. These vegetables are rich in vitamins A, C, and K, and they also contain calcium, which plays an important role in bone health, something we've already talked about as a growing concern with age. Some leafy greens also contain folate, which supports healthy blood cells and overall cellular function. You don't need to force down a giant salad if that's not appealing to you, and frankly, a huge raw salad can be genuinely difficult to chew and digest for some people. Even a modest handful of cooked spinach stirred into a soup, a stew, or an omelette can make a real difference over time. A simple, practical tip here: frozen greens work just as well nutritionally as fresh ones, and they last much longer in your freezer without going bad or wilting on your counter. There's absolutely no shame in reaching for frozen vegetables. They're pre-washed, pre-chopped, and often just as nutritious as fresh, sometimes more so, since they're frozen shortly after harvest, locking in nutrients that fresh produce can lose while sitting on a truck or a store shelf for days. Number 2, fatty fish. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, and trout are excellent choices here. These fish are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which support heart health and may also play a role in supporting brain function as we age. They're also a good source of protein and vitamin D, two nutrients that become especially important later in life, as we've discussed already. The American Heart Association and similar organizations generally recommend eating fish a couple of times a week as part of a heart-healthy eating pattern. If you're not used to cooking fish, don't worry, you don't need to become a seafood chef overnight, and you certainly don't need to master any complicated recipes. Canned salmon or sardines are a wonderfully easy starting point, requiring no cooking skills at all. You can mix canned salmon into a salad with a little olive oil and lemon, or spread sardines onto whole grain crackers for a quick, simple snack that takes only a couple of minutes to put together. Number 3, berries. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries are full of antioxidants and fiber. Berries tend to be gentle on digestion, and their natural sweetness makes them a wonderful alternative to sugary desserts, satisfying the craving for something sweet without the added sugar found in cookies, pastries, or candy. You can add a handful of berries to your morning oatmeal, mix them into yogurt, or simply eat them plain as an afternoon snack while watching television or reading. If fresh berries feel too expensive, especially outside of their peak growing season, frozen berries are just as nutritious and often significantly more affordable, and they last much longer in your freezer than fresh berries would in your fridge. You can toss a few frozen berries into a bowl and let them thaw slightly, or blend them into a simple smoothie with a bit of yogurt or milk. Number 4, whole grains. This category includes foods like oatmeal, brown rice, quinoa, and whole grain bread. Whole grains provide fiber, which helps keep digestion regular, something that becomes increasingly important as we age and our digestive systems naturally slow down a bit. Whole grains also provide steady, sustained energy throughout the day, rather than the quick spike and subsequent crash that often comes from refined, sugary foods like white bread or pastries. A simple, easy swap if you typically reach for white bread or white rice. Try switching to the whole grain version instead. It's a small change, and at first it might not seem like it's doing much of anything. But these small changes add up meaningfully over weeks and months, and many people find they genuinely enjoy the taste and texture of whole grains once they get used to them. Number 5. Beans and legumes. Lentils, chickpeas, black beans, and kidney beans are excellent, budget-friendly sources of both protein and fiber. They're especially helpful if you're trying to reduce how much red meat you eat for heart health reasons, or if chewing tougher cuts of meat has become uncomfortable due to dental issues, which is a common and understandable concern. Beans are soft, easy to prepare, and very gentle on your wallet compared to many other protein sources, which matters a great deal for anyone managing a fixed income. You can stir them into soups and stews, toss them into a simple salad for added protein, or season them with herbs and spices and eat them on their own as a simple, satisfying side dish. Number 6. Dairy or fortified alternatives. Milk, yogurt, and cheese are traditional, well-established sources of calcium and vitamin D, both of which play a crucial role in maintaining bone health as we age. If you're lactose intolerant or simply prefer not to consume dairy for personal reasons, many plant-based milk alternatives, like soy milk or almond milk, are fortified with calcium and vitamin D. Just be sure to check the nutrition label, since fortification levels can vary quite a bit between different brands and products. Greek yogurt deserves a special mention here. It tends to be higher in protein compared to regular yogurt, and a combination of calcium and probiotics can support both your bones and your digestive health at the same time, making it a genuinely efficient food choice for this stage of life. Number 7. Nuts and seeds. Almonds, walnuts, chia seeds, and flax seeds are wonderful sources of healthy fats, fiber, and protein. A small handful, not an entire bag, makes for a satisfying snack, or a nice addition sprinkled over yogurt or oatmeal for some extra crunch and nutritional value. If chewing whole nuts has become difficult, nut butters like almond butter can be a good alternative, offering similar nutritional benefits without the chewing challenge. Just keep an eye on the ingredient label, since some brands add unnecessary sugar, salt, or oils that reduce the overall health benefit. Number 8. Eggs. Eggs are an excellent, affordable source of what's called complete protein, meaning they contain all the essential amino acids your body needs to function properly. They're also a good source of vitamin B12 and vitamin D, two nutrients that many older adults don't get enough of through diet alone. Eggs are soft, versatile, and gentle on digestion for most people, making them an ideal food for anyone dealing with chewing difficulties or a sensitive stomach. Scrambled, boiled, poached, however you enjoy them, eggs are a genuinely smart and simple choice for any meal of the day, not just breakfast, and they can be prepared in just a few minutes. Number 9. Lean protein sources. This includes skinless chicken, turkey, and lean cuts of beef or pork. Protein becomes especially important after 60 because it plays a direct role in maintaining muscle mass, which, as we discussed earlier, naturally tends to decline with age if it isn't actively supported through diet and physical activity. Many health organizations, including the National Institute on Aging, note that older adults may actually need more protein per pound of body weight than younger adults. In order to help offset this natural age-related muscle loss, try to include some source of protein at each meal throughout the day, rather than saving it all for dinner, which is a common habit for many people. Spreading protein intake across the day generally helps your body use it more effectively for muscle maintenance and repair. If cooking meat from scratch feels like too much effort on a given day, and some days it genuinely does, a rotisserie chicken from the grocery store is a perfectly reasonable shortcut. There's no need to feel guilty about convenience when it helps you actually stick with healthy eating over the long term. Number 10. Water and hydrating foods. This last one isn't technically a food, but it absolutely deserves a spot on this list. As we age, our sense of thirst can become less reliable, which means it's entirely possible to become dehydrated without even realizing it's happening. Dehydration can contribute to fatigue, confusion, dizziness, and other issues that are sometimes mistaken for other, more serious health problems. Alongside drinking water throughout the day, certain foods can help support hydration too. Cucumbers, watermelon, oranges, and soups all contain a high percentage of water and can contribute meaningfully to your daily fluid intake, especially on days when drinking plain water feels unappealing. A simple habit that helps many people: keep a glass or bottle of water somewhere you'll naturally see it often. Your kitchen counter, your bedside table, next to your favorite chair. Having it visible serves as a gentle, ongoing reminder to sip throughout the day, rather than only drinking when you happen to notice you're thirsty, which, as we discussed, may not happen as reliably as it once did. Now, let's put all of this together into something practical and easy to remember, because 10 categories can feel like a lot to keep track of all at once. You don't need to eat all 10 of these every single day. That would genuinely be a lot to think about with every meal. Instead, try picturing your plate divided roughly like this. Half your plate can be filled with vegetables and fruit. A quarter of your plate can hold a protein source, whether that's fish, beans, eggs, or lean meat. Another quarter can hold a whole grain, like brown rice or oatmeal. And you can round it out with a small side of healthy fat, like a small handful of nuts or a drizzle of olive oil over your vegetables. This isn't meant to be a strict rule you have to follow perfectly at every single meal. It's simply a helpful visual to keep in the back of your mind as you're putting together what to eat. Something you can return to whenever you feel unsure about how to build a balanced plate. Now let's shift gears and talk about a few common mistakes. These are things that even well-intentioned people fall into fairly often. But the good news is that they're easy to correct once you're aware of them. Mistake number 1. Skipping meals because you're just not very hungry. As we discussed, it's common for appetite to decrease somewhat with age, but regularly skipping meals often means missing out on important nutrients your body genuinely needs to function well. Instead of forcing yourself to eat large meals that don't appeal to you, try eating smaller amounts more frequently throughout the day, perhaps 4 or 5 small meals instead of 3 large ones. This approach tends to feel much more manageable for people whose appetite has changed. Mistake number 2, not drinking enough water. As we mentioned earlier, the body's thirst signals can weaken with age, which means you may not feel thirsty even when your body genuinely needs fluids. Try to sip water consistently throughout the day, rather than waiting until you feel thirsty to reach for a glass, since by that point you may already be somewhat dehydrated. Mistake number 3, relying too heavily on processed, packaged foods. These foods are often convenient, and convenience absolutely matters, especially on busy or difficult days when energy is low. But processed foods tend to be higher in sodium and lower in fiber and essential nutrients compared to fresh options. This doesn't mean you need to cook every single meal entirely from scratch. That's simply not realistic for most people, and there's no reason to hold yourself to that standard. It just means trying to balance convenience foods with fresh options whenever you reasonably can. Mistake number 4, cutting out entire food groups without a good, specific medical reason. Sometimes people avoid entire categories of food, like carbohydrates or dairy, based on trends they've seen online or heard about from a friend, rather than any actual personal medical need. Unless your doctor has specifically advised you to avoid something, most food groups offer real, meaningful benefits when eaten in reasonable, sensible amounts. Mistake number 5, not getting enough protein. Many people associate high-protein diets primarily with younger, more athletic individuals, or with bodybuilders and gym enthusiasts. But as we discussed earlier, older adults often need more protein, not less, in order to help protect and maintain muscle mass over time. Mistake number 6, assuming supplements can fully replace real food. Supplements can certainly be helpful in specific situations, and your doctor might recommend one based on your individual health needs and blood work. But generally speaking, supplements work best alongside a healthy diet, not as a complete substitute for one. Whole foods provide a rich, complex combination of nutrients, fiber, and other beneficial compounds that a single pill simply cannot fully replicate, no matter how well formulated it is. Mistake number 7. Ignoring noticeable changes in appetite or weight. If you notice a significant, unexplained change in your appetite, your weight, or your overall energy levels, it's genuinely worth mentioning to your doctor at your next visit, or sooner if the change feels concerning. It might turn out to be nothing serious at all, but it's always worth having it checked, just to be safe and to give yourself peace of mind. Let's do a quick recap of everything we've covered today. Since we've gone through quite a lot of information, we talked about 10 food groups that are especially helpful for people over 60, leafy greens, fatty fish, berries, whole grains, beans and legumes, dairy or fortified alternatives, nuts and seeds, eggs, lean protein and water. We also covered a simple, visual way to build a balanced plate using these food groups. And we went through some common mistakes to watch out for, like skipping meals, not drinking enough water, relying too heavily on processed food, and unnecessarily cutting out entire food groups without good reason. The most important thing to remember from all of this is that you don't need to overhaul your entire diet overnight. In fact, trying to change everything all at once often backfires and leads to frustration, and eventually to giving up altogether. Instead, start small. Maybe this week, you simply add 1 more serving of vegetables to your day. Maybe you swap white bread for whole grain bread at your next grocery trip. Small, steady changes add up meaningfully over time, and they're far easier to stick with long-term than a dramatic, all-at-once overhaul that's difficult to sustain. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more videos on healthy aging, nutrition, and staying active later in life. And if there's a food or health topic you'd like us to cover in a future video, leave it in the comments below. We genuinely read every single one. And many of our video ideas come directly from viewers just like you, sharing their own questions and experiences. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today, and take good care of yourself.